And it doesn't stop there. Since President Trump returned to office in January, there have been over 40 universal injunctions issued against the federal government. That's in 4 months. 35 of those 40 came from the same 5 judicial districts. Under Presidents Bush, Obama, and Biden combined, 32 nationwide injunctions. Under President Trump's first term, 4 years, 64 nationwide injunctions, and now in just 4 months, we're already over.
My fellow Americans, patriots, truth seekers, welcome back to the Patriot Lens, where we stand for faith, family, freedom, and the Constitution of the United States of America. I'm your host, KRAWLER, and today, I'm fired up. Because what was discussed in this congressional hearing, that wasn't just a speech, that was a warning, a shot across the bow. The truth is finally being spoken in the halls of Congress, and we better listen before it's too late. That right there, that is the sound of someone who gets it. Folks, we're witnessing something very dangerous. We are watching the rise of a judicial oligarchy. Judges, unelected, unaccountable, insulated elites, have taken it upon themselves to override the will of the people, override the president we elected, and rewrite our laws from the bench. If that doesn't terrify you, it should. Let me break it down. President Donald J. Trump was elected not once, but twice by the American people. His mandate was clear. Secure the border, fix our trade, stand up to China, defend the Constitution, drain the swamp. And the moment he stepped foot in the Oval Office, activist judges across the country went to war against him. You know why? Because he wasn't part of their club. He wasn't a go-along-to-get-along career politician. He was there to flip the table, and they hate him for it. Let's talk about the facts. Since President Trump returned to office in January, over 40 universal injunctions have been issued against his administration, and 35 of those came from the same 5 districts. That's not coincidence. That's coordination. That's judicial sabotage. In the first 150 years of our republic, there were 0 nationwide injunctions. 0. Now, judges in San Francisco, Baltimore, and Boston think they have more power than the commander-in-chief. That's not justice. That's a coup in slow motion. Let's not pretend this happened out of nowhere. Joe Biden, or whoever is really calling the shots behind that empty suit, stacked the federal courts with radicals. Not judges. Not neutral umpires. Activists. People who think their job is to correct the Constitution instead of interpret it. People who believe gender ideology is more important than parental rights. People who think climate activism is more important than affordable energy for working families. People who think illegal immigrants have more rights than you and me. Do you know what it means when a single district judge blocks a federal deportation policy? It means thousands of illegal aliens get to stay in the country. No hearing, no accountability.
Good afternoon. I hereby call to order this hearing on the supposedly least dangerous branch, district judges versus Donald J. Trump. This hearing is a joint undertaking by the Subcommittee on the Constitution and the Subcommittee on Federal Courts because our country is facing a constitutional crisis, a full-blown judicial assault on the separation of powers that strikes at the very foundation of the Republic. What we're witnessing is the rise of judicial lawfare from the bench. One unelected district judge sitting in a courtroom in San Francisco or Boston or Baltimore can now issue a nationwide injunction that ties the hands of the President of the United States for all 330 million Americans. That's not law, that's judicial tyranny. President Donald Trump was elected by over 77 million Americans with a constitutional mandate to govern. These district judges, they were not elected. They were appointed by one individual and confirmed not to legislate, not to govern, but to apply the law. And yet, far too many of them have abandoned that role. They've stepped off the bench and into the political arena, issuing sweeping edicts that impose their policy preferences on 340 million Americans. Let's walk through just a few of the most egregious recent examples. Economic policy. In New York City, the Court of International Trade struck down all of President Trump's tariffs under IEEPA, declaring that they exceeded executive authority. It was not judging, it was judges replacing the president's judgment on declaring a national emergency. And of course, that ruling was almost immediately stayed by the Court of Appeals. Deportation policy. In Baltimore, the chief judge for the District Court of Maryland issued an order preventing the removal of illegal aliens detained anywhere in the country, granting 2 days of automatic protection to anyone who files a habeas petition in Maryland, all without a hearing or legal findings. This single Maryland judge dictated national deportation policy and then tried to claw back the damage by amending the order. As chairman of the Subcommittee on Federal Courts, I'm investigating this overreach, and I've sent a letter to the Judicial Conference of the United States. But the judges did not stop there. In D.C., a judge blocked the federal government from requiring proof of citizenship to vote, overriding election integrity laws across all 50 states. In Boston, a judge weighed in on birthright citizenship, deciding a question of nationwide consequence for millions of illegal aliens, despite the plaintiffs being solely one pregnant mother and 2 nonprofit organizations. That's absurd. That is policymaking and legislating. That is not adjudication. In Boston, a different judge blocked a Department of Energy rate cap, handcuffing efforts to lower taxpayer costs for energy research. In Rhode Island, a judge ordered the federal government to immediately disperse tens of millions of dollars under the Inflation Reduction Act and other programs. The Department of Energy alone was forced to release $50 million by judicial fiat. In San Francisco, a judge mandated that the Office of Personnel Management rehire all terminated federal workers and restricted future firings, effectively turning the judiciary into an HR department. Yet another Maryland judge halted orders intending to stop funding for institutions mutilating minors through so-called gender transitions. These deeply consequential decisions were blocked not by voters, not by Congress, but in each instance by one unelected judge. And it doesn't stop there. Since President Trump returned to office in January, there have been over 40 universal injunctions issued against the federal government. That's in 4 months. 35 of those 40 came from the same 5 judicial districts.
When a judge blocked Trump's energy rate cap, it meant taxpayers paid more for government research. One judge did that. When another judge forced the rehiring of federal workers who were lawfully fired, that judge basically became HR director for the entire executive branch. I don't know about you, but I didn't vote for some Ivy League robe wearer to dictate national policy from a courtroom in Rhode Island. I voted for a president. We have a constitution. 3 co-equal branches. Not 4. Not whatever this one judge says goes. It's time we call this what it is, tyranny dressed in a black robe. Now, I can already hear the liberals crying, but the courts are supposed to be a check on executive power. Sure, when they're interpreting the law. Not when they're inventing it. Not when they're overriding Congress and the president to impose their own political agenda. That's not checks and balances, that's mutiny. So what do we do about it, patriots? First, we demand judicial reform. Congress must rein in these out-of-control courts. End the abuse of nationwide injunctions. Hold judges accountable who overstep their role. Second, we must continue to support President Trump and his America First agenda. Because if they can block him, they can block any future conservative president. And third, we fight back in the court of public opinion. We educate, we expose, we never back down. I want you to remember something. This country was built on the blood of patriots who refused to be ruled by elites. From the fields of Lexington to the beaches of Normandy, we have always fought for freedom, not by surrendering it to judges, but by standing tall in defense of liberty. The hour is late, the threat is real, but so is our resolve. God bless you, God bless President Trump, and God bless the United States of America.